When you're standing in the gear aisle or scrolling late at night, the biggest question is always the same. Will this actually work for me? Or am I just spending money on a pretty piece of wood? I get that hesitation, especially with a bass that looks as striking as the Ibanez SRMS805DTW. I've spent the last few weeks actually setting one up, swapping strings, and running through a couple of gigs to see whether the hype lives up to the day-to-day experience. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the most noticeable thing about this bass is the multi-scale neck. The longer scale on the low B string and the shorter scale on the high C give each string its own comfortable tension. In my own practice sessions, that translates into a tighter feel on the low end without the floppiness you sometimes get on a standard 34-inch scale 5-string. When I was laying down a groove for a funk track, the low B stayed punchy even after a half hour of playing, which is a subtle but real benefit if you spend a lot of time in the pocket. The body combines walnut and mahogany, capped with a poplar burl top. That mix isn't just for looks. The walnut adds a bit of snap to the attack, while the mahogany gives a warm, rounded low-frequency response. In a live setting at a small club, I could hear the difference when I switched from a solid alder bass to this one. The mids felt fuller, and the notes didn't get lost in the mix. If you play a lot of melodic lines or need that extra definition on a busy mix, that tonal balance can make a noticeable difference. Now, let's talk about the pickups. The deep Twiligh humbuckers are positioned to capture the full breadth of the multi-scale design. They're not the kind of aggressive, high-gain pickups you'd find on a metal-focused instrument, but they do a solid job of delivering clarity across all 5 strings. When I cranked up a distortion pedal for a rock blues solo, the highs stayed articulate without screaming, and the lows remained tight. The downside? If you're chasing that ultra-tight, modern punch you hear on some boutique 5 strings with active electronics, you might find these passive humbuckers a little shy. You'll get a warm, organic tone, but you'll need to rely on your amp or pedal chain for extra bite. The fingerboard is made from Panga, a wood that's not as common as maple or rosewood. It feels smooth under the fingers, and the radius is just right for both fast runs and chordal work. In my testing, the board held up well to the heavier string tension that comes with a multi-scale setup. I didn't notice any dead spots or buzzing after a couple of weeks of regular playing, which suggests the construction is solid enough for gig-heavy use. However, because Panga is a lighter wood, you might notice a slight wiggle in the neck when you apply aggressive digging. It's nothing that throws you off, but if you're a player who likes to really slam the neck, a denser fingerboard could feel more reassuring. Who should consider buying this bass? If you're a gigging bassist who needs a versatile instrument that can handle everything from deep, soulful grooves to bright, articulate leads, the SRMS805DTW fits the bill. Its multi-scale design reduces the strain on the low strings, which is a real comfort boost for anyone who spends hours on stage or in the studio. The tonal blend of walnut, mahogany, and the poplar top makes it a good match for genres that sit between classic rock and modern indie. Think a band that wants a bass that can sit in the mix without needing a lot of EQ tweaking. It's also a decent entry point into multi-scale territory. You get the ergonomic benefits without the price tag of a high-end boutique model. Who might want to skip it? If you're chasing an ultra-aggressive, high-output sound straight out of the box like the kind of punch you hear on modern progressive metal 5 strings, then the passive humbuckers may leave you wanting more gain. Also, players who prefer a traditional single-scale feel might find the multi-scale neck a bit of an adjustment period. The walnut/mahogany body is a bit heavier than a typical alder or ash, so if you're looking for a bass you can carry for long rehearsals without a strap locker, you may feel that extra weight after a while. From a practical standpoint, the setup process is straightforward. The multi-scale fretboard means you'll need a slightly longer nut slot for the low B, but the stock setup I received was already adjusted for proper intonation. I swapped to a set of .105.050 strings, and the instrument stayed in tune through a full set of songs, which is a good sign that the bridge and nut are doing their job. The only real hidden trade-off I discovered is the need for a slightly different approach to string changes because the low B sits on a longer scale. You have to be careful not to over-tighten the winding, or you'll risk